Introduce the idea of trigonometry. Trigonometry is a study of ratios. Somebody may remind me what ratio means. What's a ratio?
It's like a...
Yeah, the motions are there. Something to something. Sometimes we write it with a colon, so like 2 to 3. Sometimes we wrote it as a fraction. We're going to write them as fractions here. So a ratio is a fraction. So tangent, which we abbreviate tan, is equal to the ratio or the fraction, it says, of the length of the opposite side of an angle to the length of the adjacent side to an angle. So trigonometry, as we begin this study, works in right triangles. So we have to be working in right triangles. What we're going to do is select one angle of the triangle, never the right angle, but one of the other two angles on which to place our focus. Sometimes you'll be told which angle, sometimes you get to pick which angle, but we choose one angle to focus on. This symbol is called theta. It's just a Greek letter. Okay, it looks like an O with a line in it. It's just a Greek letter that's called theta. It's just a symbol we use to denote an angle. Then we name the sides of the triangle according to the relationship with that angle. So the hypotenuse is always across from the right angle. Then the side that we call our opposite is across the triangle from that theta. Directly across from it is the opposite. And then the side that's next to the angle, that's not the hypotenuse, but the other side that's next to it is our adjacent. Adjacent just means next to or touching or close to. So the adjacent side is the one that's close to or next to the angle that we're looking at. So this says that the tangent of an angle is equal to the opposite over the adjacent. That word tangent can never be by itself. So when you see tangent, T-A-N, it can never be by itself. It always must have an angle following it. It always has to have an angle following it. It could just be the name of an angle, like theta, or it could be how big the angle is, like 46 degrees. But it always has to have an angle following it. We can use trig to solve for pieces in triangles. So in this example, it says first to find the tangent of x. So what we're going to do is place all of our focus on x and say tangent of x is equal to, tangent is always opposite of that angle over adjacent to that angle. So what side is opposite of the x? 5. And what side is next to the x that's not the hypotenuse? 12. So tangent of x is 5 over 12. Then it says find the tangent of y. So the tangent of y, what is opposite of the y? And what's next to the y that's not the hypotenuse? 5. Okay, so we just set up fractions, always doing opposite over adjacent. We're not using the hypotenuse today. We will use the hypotenuse as we learn about the other two trig functions later. So in this example, it says find the value of y to the nearest tenth. So in this triangle, we know how big an angle is. That's the angle that we will focus on. We know how big one side is, and we want to know how big another side is. So we can set up a tangent fraction. Tangent of 56. You always want an angle following the word tangent. It could be the name of the angle, like x or y in the last question, or it could be how big the angle is, like 56 degrees. Equals, what's opposite of the 56? Y. And what's next to the 56? 32. Now we want to solve for y. So we have to get y all alone. What's being done to y? It's being divided. So how do I undo division? Multiply. So we're going to multiply both sides by 32. Then we're going to type this in our calculator. So take out your calculator.
Tries my phone.
The first thing that you need to do, particularly if you are using a graphing calculator, if you're using some other form of calculator, this is probably not going to be a concern, but if you are using a graphing calculator, you need to press the button that says Mode, and make sure that on that third line down, it is the word degree that is dark. If it is not the word degree that is dark, then you need to make it dark by putting your cursor on it and hitting enter. If you're using a scientific calculator or the calculator on your phone, it's probably not going to be necessary. But on a graphing calculator, make sure that on that third line down is the word degree that is dark. Then, if you are using a graphing calculator, you can type this in order exactly what it said. 32, tangent, our tangent button will be somewhere in the middle of the calculator, 56, and hit enter. If you are using like a Texas Instruments 30-ish calculator, you can also type it in the same way. If you're using your phone, you'll probably need to type it in backwards and hit 56 and then the tangent and then times 32 if you're using a phone calculator. And you'll need your phone, if you're using like an iPhone or an iPad, you'll need it sideways to get that tangent button. But it is there. But you'll probably have to type it in backwards. So whatever type of calculator you're using, try typing this in to make sure that you get the correct answer of 47.4. So figure out how you have to type it in on your calculator. Okay, so we're going to do a few more examples here. In these triangles, let's focus on R and find the tangent of R in each of them. So in that first one, the tangent of R will be what fraction? 3 over 8. Opposite is 3, over adjacent is 8. What about in the second one? What's the tangent of R? 13 over 19.
Oh.
And in the last one?
What is that?
It was supposed to be a 15, but it kind of looks like a K, so we'll go with K. K over 8. So opposite over adjacent. Always opposite over adjacent for tangent. Okay. For these last four, we're looking at practicing plugging it into the calculator and finding approximations. So if it gives us tangent and then a number, we just want to type that in. Now again, if you're using like a phone calculator, you're probably going to have to type it in backwards. So you'll type in 24 and then hit tangent. Whereas if you're using more of a Texas Instruments calculator, whether it's a TI 30 something or a graphing calculator, you'll type in tangent 24, enter. But go ahead and type that in and tell me what you get for tangent of 24. Yep, 0.45 about. Okay, we'll go to about 2 decimal places. About tangent 41. 0.87. Now on these last two, we're looking for the angle. We cannot just divide by the word tangent because like I said, we can't ever have the word tangent by itself. So we can't do 2.4751 divided by just tangent. If you try to type that into your calculator, it will give you an error. To undo a tangent, what we need is the inverse tangent. And the way we type that into our calculator is with our second button. So you're going to type in second, and then your tangent button, and then the number, 2.4751. Okay? Second tangent is what we use when we are solving for an angle. If we are solving for the angle, the missing part is next to the word tangent. We have to do a second tangent on our calculator. Again, if you're using an iPhone, you're going to do this backwards. You'll type in the number first and then second tangent. Okay. And as you calculate that, somebody tell me what you get. 68 degrees. Okay. And go ahead and try the last one. What angle do we get for 0.3057? 16? Is it 16 point something?
16.99.
Okay, so that kind of sounds closer to 17 because it's 16.9, so we'll just kind of round that up to 17. Okay? So if you are solving for the fraction part of it, you just type in a regular tangent. If you are solving for the angle part of it, you will type in second tangent. I want to look at a couple more that will show you some things that you're going to see on your homework. So if I have a triangle and I'm missing the angle, let's say, I can set up a tangent function that will allow me to find how big that angle is. So I would say tangent of x, we always want the angle with the tangent, is equal to what fraction? 8 over 12. Now since we're solving for an angle, this is where we type in second. So on our calculator we would do second, tangent, and then 8 divided by 12. And how big is that angle? About 33 degrees. Let me double check that. I didn't have my calculator. I just took the first answer I heard. Second tangent of 8 over 12. Yep, I got 33.69, so between 33 and 34. So again, if you're doing it on an iPhone, you have to do it backwards. So do 8 divided by 12, enter, and then do second. Okay. Yes.
Will it tell you what decimal point it wants you to round when you're finding it?
I don't think the book tells you what decimal point, so in general, just go to kind of 1 or 2 decimal places. I'm not going to be really picky about that. But I don't think it does tell you very much.
Then, like, when you're finding the angle or whatever, go ahead and tell you.
Yeah, for an angle, go to like the closest angle. But for a side or a fraction, go to places. All right, on this one, let's say that we're given an angle of 40. And I'm going to give this side is 10, and this side is x. So let's set up a tangent problem for the angle 40. Tangent of 40 is equal to what? 10 over x. Now when I solve this equation, I'm trying to get x alone by undoing this fraction. I need to multiply by x because that's what's going to cancel the bottom. But unfortunately, that didn't get my x alone. It just moved my x, and now it's with other stuff than it was before. So how do I get it alone now? Divide by the tangent of 40. So on your calculator, you would need to do 10 divided by tangent 40. There's an easier way to do this problem, particularly if you have one of the calculators where you need to type things in backwards. And that is to, instead of using the angle we're given, use the other angle. If you always focus on the angle that is opposite of what you're looking for, it's going to be easier to solve. But we aren't given that angle, but we could find it. How big is it? 50, because we have to have 180 degrees in a triangle. So we can find out what that missing angle is. And then we could set up tangent of 50 is equal to x over 10, which is easier to solve. How do we solve this? Multiply by 10 and type 10 tangent of 50 in. Okay, so if you choose to always focus on the angle that is opposite of what you are looking for, the algebra will be easier. It works either way, but the algebra will be easier if you always choose to focus on the angle opposite of what you are asked for. Okay? All right.
Is this trigonometry?
This is trigonometry.